Nigeria, when they support you, when they queue behind you, your chances will become brighter. We'll be joined by Paul Ibe, media advisor to Atiku Abubakar, and a seasoned journalist to dissect these developments. Well, Nigerian political actors and lawmakers have been encouraged to consider the model of electing leaders being used by countries such as Switzerland, certain professional bodies and international organizations to ensure stability and a rancor-free political trajectory ahead of future elections. The call was made by the president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, Pengassin, Festus Osifo, on the sidelines of an event in Abuja. We will interrogate that. Interesting, at a time many are calling for a change in Nigeria's political system. Some people have suggested and even attempts to introduce bills to amend the constitution in the National Assembly. For instance, a system single tenure for presidents. In the past, Alex Ekwueme had proposed the 6 geopolitical zones to be retained as basis for sharing and rotation of political offices in Nigeria. But this one coming from the TUC president, which he says some professional organizations are already operating, brings in a new perspective to the discourse. As usual, my colleagues are here with me. We have Uju Ejeye, we have Shola Jaisimi, and Mustafa Mohammed, gentlemen of the press. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Welcome to our listeners and viewers.
Let's share what Festus Osifo, Pengassin and NUC president, is saying about what they called or suggested a new approach to Nigeria's presidency and selection of leaders.
What is the best model that we have in our country in terms of succession? We looked at it. We looked at the NBA. We said, no, that's not the best model. We looked at ICANN, for example. We said, yes, I think there's something there. If you look at ICANN, they don't contest election into the president, but they contest election into the vice. Because the president is already known. Because he's known, the senior or the first vice president will transit to become the president. So that balances and smoothing whatsoever they were doing. And we have imbibed that in Pengassin. So in Pengassin, whoever is the deputy president elected is going to automatically become the president. So there is no contestation again in the office of a president. We can also do that. I mean, if you look at Switzerland today, in Switzerland today, they have collegiate of president, right? About 6 from different regions. So this 1 year, the next one comes in 1 year. So at the end, it reduces tension. So anything we could do to reduce the tension in our politicking, it's welcome. Yes, I mean, when Pengassin is stabilized, what that means is that you can better protect jobs, you can better sit on the table and negotiate good CBAs for your members. You can
Okay, interesting proposals there. I mentioned the Switzerland case where you have multiple vice presidents. That mention has also been made here not too long ago.
He actually makes one great point. The model we had at pre-independence and at independence, the parliamentary system is far more better. Parliamentary system was far more participatory for Nigerians. The democratic system is more expensive, where even development in Nigeria cannot be tracked because of our size and our insincerity, especially the people we are sending to represent. If we are using the parliamentary system, it's unlike presidential system where the president is inaccessible. The prime minister comes from the parliament where his colleagues can see and challenge him. It's always very interesting when you watch the debate at the British Parliament where the various prime ministers can come in, parliamentarians can look at them, speak with them, challenge them, shout at each other, heart to heart. A country like Nigeria needed a reform where the expensive presidential system can be pushed aside. And secondly, the most important thing is it's not about limiting or opening up the space for becoming who is the president or who is the prime minister in Nigeria. What we need in Nigeria is a Nigerian leader who is devoid of tribe, ethnicity, religion, who is
That's a contemplation that the president, the presidential system envisages a strong president that will will the country together, unite the country, devoid of all these sentiments. But we have seen presidents who are deep neck into this primordial sentiment.
Exactly, in terms of appointment and contracts and so many other things that you can allege, especially from the return of democracy in 1999 till date. So what we need is a person who is a Nigerian and devoid of all these sentiments. A Nigerian president who is accessible. A Nigerian president who can look at the governors, look at his political party, lead with the blueprint. As we are now, the political parties and their chairmen since 1999 hardly can be said to have a direction. The party supremacy is no longer there. Okay. Look at what happened under Obasanjo. How many party chairmen did Obasanjo change? How many Senate presidents went down the drain at the National Assembly? That means something is very, very wrong with how we practice our democracy.
Well, I think that, listening to him, I was just wondering, if we have to have a system where the vice president automatically steps in as president when the president's tenure is over, then that means we have more work to do, on who becomes the vice president. It will not be the way it is right now, because you look at most of the parties, the presidents are people that the vice presidents are people that the president thinks can, kowtow to whatever he does, somebody who will be loyal to him. It doesn't mean it's the person with the best capacity, it's the person who is most competent. And so we're going to have people who are not as competent as the country needs, getting into office as president if we run that kind of system. I think that Mustafa has said it, and you have too, that we need people who are Nigerian. People who will see every Nigerian as a Nigerian, not a Yoruba man, an Igbo woman, an Hausa man, people who are totally detribalized. I think, look, no matter what you say about President Olusegun Obasanjo, I think that his tenure saw appointments across board, across regions, across tribes. He went for the best brains. He brought Okonjo-Iweala. We didn't really know her before. And look at what she did, helping to cancel Nigeria's debt and everything, and building the economy. The economy became strong. He also brought up Nenadu Usman. He brought up people that we did, Obieze, all of them, El-Rufai. He was the one who brought El-Rufai on board, and we saw what he did as Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. So I think that so far we give him kudos for that. Forget about some of the other things he did, but in terms of governance in this dispensation,
other things such as top 10 agenda that is still coming up to this.
I think that he tried, and then looking at the system, let's look at detribalized Nigerians. Okay. What we have seen since the APC, no offense meant, government came into being is not what Nigerians should be proud of. We saw nepotism under late President Muhammadu Buhari. Nepotism, and we thought we had seen it all. And then this administration came into being, and we're seeing almost the same pattern. I hope the next person will not follow this same pattern. Let us look for Nigerians who have capacity, competence, people who know, and people who are not carrying too many baggages, because this baggage is also rob us of a lot of things.
So I take us back to the Pengerson president's comments and proposals. They are his proposals. He's entitled to his opinion. And from what he has said, his opinion is that the office of the vice president should be where the contestation should be. That it should be carry-go to anybody who wins that position.
Should be a president in waiting.
In fact, in some countries, I can't put my hand on them outrightly. If in the Philippines, the office of the vice president is contested for separately to that of the president. Two of them go separately to seek votes. That's why the man who is at the International Criminal Court now, Duterte, the person who ran with him as vice president separately, they fell out. And that person,
so that rancor will be there. You have a president and a vice president elected differently. You're sowing seed for discord.
In fact, in Peru, Fujimori, who just got in now, that lady, her father was the former president of that country. She was a vice president to a former person, and she contested separately. So it's novel. But the thing about it is that, like we have also said, if somebody has baggage as a vice president, that you know that this one, big question marks, that person should not even have either legal, moral, or what have you, to seek the presidency. So let the battle be at the presidency. That's the big office. And as it is, our constitution says that is where the whoever is seeking should contest. So he's entitled to his views. As an individual, I also have my views, and my views are that we shouldn't go that's a professional association's strategy. And that's why at times some person who managed to become a vice president of a professional association and is seemingly just shooed into the presidency of that.
His argument is that he introduces some form of stability and reduces rancor.
The thing is this. It is good for the person seeking the main office to be able to know that's the office you're seeking. If not, if you're in the vice presidential position of an association and you get to the presidency, your presidency of that association might just be the way it was when you were a vice, because you managed to get in there.
Another thing that we need to look at
is that Nigeria has not really sat down to decide the system that will be best suited for it.
We have sat down.
Yes, apart from 1959, all the London conferences, all the independent conferences, the ones held in Lagos, that we settled for the cabinet system.
Yeah.
The other ones have been imposed, because after the failure of the Westminster cabinet system in 1966.
Did it fail?
It failed.
Wow,
the Civil War came in.
It did fail. There was an interruption.
The politicians ran that system aground.
And it failed. They failed the system.
Yes.
So it failed eventually. Coups came. Then the Civil War. At the end of the day, they said in 1979 we needed to change it. We needed a strong president with enormous powers that will bring the country together, show unity, and administer the country as one constituency. That is what was envisaged. But in practice, we have seen, you mentioned Obasanjo that tried to do that. We also mentioned those that deviated from those norms. To me, we can't just be hoping and wishing like one day the Messiah will come and make things right for us. We must devise a system that will be foolproof, that will hold leaders to account, even the president, that will indeed introduce adequate checks and balances in such a way that when a president violates the constitution by way of federal character, appoints people from his own ethnic stock into positions, there will be checks and balances.
The leader suggested may not really work for us as a country. I mean, you're talking of a professional association. In other words, the person who is the vice is already a qualified professional, educated, his certificates, everything intact. So most of the disputes we have at the higher level of the presidency and vice presidency will not be there, because he is known as a professional and with the training that is required, adequate training to carry out that the demands of the office. And then we'll talk about, I wanted to talk about the 6-year tenure, 7-year tenure. We also have a problem in this country, the one of rotational presidency, because of the distrust that has crept into our leadership. Everybody wants it to rotate, run their own region.
You see, the transition from parliamentary, which was basically the 15th January coup, to military for about 13 years before the democratic experience again started in 1979 with presidential election. That transition to the presidential system was actually cosmetics. You can bring in any system and hang, but what about the people who will run these systems? For example, the military was part of the problem. They ran for 13 years. The biggest problem, number one, was, okay, those who did the wrong thing, the 15 January coup, were they punished? Were there any judicial compensation for the killing of some regional leaders? And then when you put the presidential system in 1979, you brought in the issue of the president being so powerful. Okay, now in 2026, you have governors with a lot of money without developmental blueprint. There are a lot of poverty in the land.
Shall I have something to add here?
No party supremacy. So it's not about the system you are bringing. Even the operatives, the people who will run this system,
is that much more important?
Yeah, look at the permanent secretary in the states. Let me quickly add this. Look at the permanent secretary in this state. The permanent secretaries and directors in the various states virtually have no capacity. So how are you going to
let's leave it there.
That statement is too blanketed. Permit me to use that word. Because, if we have persons who we know have done their part in the public service, and then we cannot pour down everybody. We know the civil service may have its deficiencies, but the truth is that many in the public service,
majority
at the state and at the federal, are giving it their best shot with regards to ensuring processes and principles of public service are followed through.
Sometimes you see politicians who come in and insist that they undermine these processes. But another issue that has come up, and which we'll go into now, is the issue of that third term, issue of godfathers standing behind candidates. As the election approaches, as we have seen in the past, the big godfathers will always take a position. Sometimes they do it openly, sometimes they do it secretly. Former President Obasanjo, for instance, hardly hides his position. Sometimes he takes to writing a public letter addressed to a certain office holder, criticizing the person heavily. We also know and see how people go on a sort of pilgrimage to the hilltop in Mina. The person that has that hilltop residence in Mina. And I believe that in the years to come now, the business leaders, those that have fat bank balances, may also play some big roles if they are not doing that already. Some billionaires in dollar terms may also provide some funding. And so the latest back and forth between Obasanjo and Atiku Abubakar, which didn't start today, has come up again. Atiku Abubakar accusing him of secretly indeed supporting his kinsman. He didn't mention his kinsman, but Obasanjo's only kinsman in this contest is the incumbent president, Bola Tinubu. But we all know that Olusegun Obasanjo has been behind Peter Obi and has been his chief supporter.
But beyond that, you can refer to what Obasanjo said as regards to Atiku Abubakar as guilty consciousness, because when he was his vice president, he, in conjunction with those from the northeast, sabotage Atiku's efforts at taking shots at the presidency. Because remember what happened when it was the turn of the military-backed late Abubakar Rimi. Obasanjo turned around and nominated Atiku. Eventually, they came in between, and Obasanjo ended up sabotaging Atiku's effort. Of course, you don't expect Atiku to have forgiven him at this moment, but left to me, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar should just ignore Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president, and continue his quest for the seat of the presidency. Those issues of the past, no matter what Obasanjo says about it, currently Obasanjo is not in the contest. He was there for 8 years. Obasanjo will not be in the contest. So many former presidents that he has written letters to virtually ignored these long letters that is usually
he has not been writing letters of recent.
He has not been writing letters of recent, but President Tinubu is still in the office. Don't be surprised if this afternoon a letter from Obasanjo comes to him. If I were him, Obasanjo would have just stayed as a statesman, a national leader who had ruled both as a military and civilian head of state.
And still no evil.
Yes, and if Atiku,
is that your description of a statesman?
Yeah,
no evil?
Yes, because whatever
no
you
evil.
say, those in power cannot take. And if Atiku is billed to become a president, just like Buhari has taken a shot several times before he became a president, he can also be there one day.
I think that Mustafa may not be really fair to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. In the first instance, let's look at it. He was the one who nominated Atiku. Now, if he did not want Atiku to work with him, would he have nominated him if he hated him that much?
You are ignoring the circumstances.
Would he have nominated him? Now,
People change.
even if somebody influenced it, but he accepted Atiku and they started working. I think that where things went awry was when Obasanjo wanted to bid for the second term, and Atiku too was interested in the presidency at that point. One would have expected that since he knew Obasanjo was interested in
Or being lured
the second term, he should have at least allowed him to serve it out. But he also gone for the presidency at that point in time. I think that was where things really went wrong. And I recall also at a time where the case of Chief Bola.
But he later supported up. He didn't quite come up.
And he didn't buy any from, so I don't know where that is coming from.
You know, we're talking about what we know that happened at that point in time. He later supported because there was nothing he could do at that point in time.
He saw signs that he was interested.
He tested the waters, and but you see, Obasanjo had knowledge of some of the things he did on the ground. That's not to say that I'm running down Vice President Atiku Abubakar. He did very well with the economy at that time, and I can say that for him. You see, again, now you did that. There was also the angle of late Chief Bola Ige. That I cannot go into details. And don't forget that Ige was very close to Obasanjo, because Ige was said to have been one of the persons who saved him in prison when he would have been poisoned. I think they wanted to poison his teeth or whatever, those kind of talks. But they were very, very close. Now, if you did all of that, how would you want this man to trust you if you wanted to upstage him when he wanted to go for second? So the quarrel between the two of them, or the angst between the two of them, runs deeper than
And
what we can see. Yes, and even though he has gone to former President Obasanjo to say, look, forget this thing, he did that in 2023.
In 2019, Obasanjo came out in support of Atiku Abubakar and said,
yes, in 2023, the same thing, you know, and...
No, 2023, Obasanjo was behind Peter Obi.
He was behind Peter Obi, but he didn't put down Atiku at the same time. So I think that it is the two of them that will sort out what is between them.
This problem between them, Shola.
I'll start from where we need to go back, and we need to signpost all these issues, which is that in 2023, those who know say Atiku wanted to organize, quote, a civilian palace coup against Obasanjo.
That's 2003.
2003, 23 years ago. And that eventually they even said, those who know, that Baba Obasanjo prostrated for Atiku. Well, we can't verify that. We're not there.
That he knelt down.
He knelt down and said, sorry, I will make sure that everything is okay in the second term. Don't get the governors against me, to show you how the governors have been powerful way back. And Atiku said, no problem. But that Obasanjo waited and waited. And Amechi, you were at the presidential villa as this station's correspondent. And you know what happened, where Obasanjo walked Atiku out of a federal cabinet meeting in 2026. You know the whole story. And eventually, the fight started. And Atiku ran to Tinubu, and Tinubu said, okay, no problem, we have our new party, Action Congress. You will be our presidential candidate, and gave him the ticket. Right from that 2026, you know how many times you saw Atiku at the presidential villa? If the facts are there. So the fight is not today's fight. But like we have just emphasized, and I like the fact that we're able to pick that out, in October of 2018, Obasanjo said, let bygone be bygone. I will support you as the candidate of the PDP to contest against Muhammadu Buhari for Buhari when he was seeking second term. So you see politicians, when things are convenient, they rally round. When there's some things that didn't go well, they separate themselves. So it's not a new thing. And
no, but you know that Atiku actually went to beg him at that time.
Yes.
And it was out of magnanimity, or if we can put it that way, that he said, okay.
So I'm emphasizing the fact that he agreed and supported him, made statements in support of Atiku. He said he has been my vice president, though there were things that happened, but now he's capable. But Buhari still beat Atiku in 2019. So politicians will always be politicians. That's the thing about that. And I want to emphasize that statesmen are not people who should sit on the fence like Humpty Dumpty.
Exactly.
Statesmen must take positions. A statesman is not someone that
if they see any evil, they should
speak up.
Evil. Yeah.
So if someone has been the president of this country before and he sees someone who succeeded him, maybe not directly, but probably later, not going well, a statesman should speak up. In fact, the US, which set up the system of former presidents don't criticize their successors.
The counter-argument is that there is a National Council of State where these former leaders meet. That's a platform to engage the president.
Behind closed doors.
Yes, as a former president also, you have that back channels to reach the president. Look at what Babatunde Fashola, former governor who succeeded Tinubu, said recently in a TV interview. I can reach him, President Bola Tinubu, and give advice. Sometimes also here on the flip side, that you don't have that access. They fence the president, and when you're frustrated, you go public with your criticism of him to ensure that the message gets to him.
Yes, which is acceptable once it's done with civility, with courtesy for one another. What we must not promote, and what the media also needs to be very careful about, is all the gutter-like language that a public office holder may hold, and because you're no longer there, you throw all sorts of things. Be civil in your criticism. Bring facts to the table. Drop the facts and ensure the facts speak. And when you bring facts, let the person responding to the facts, to those facts you have brought, do the same thing, not also going into the gutter.
Let's go for a break now. We're expecting our guest, Paul Libe, Atiku spokesperson, to join us. We hope to have him after this break. Do stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT, on air, online,
In the hallowed chambers where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program, Inside the Parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The government have proven that the elections have been peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the president.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The questions are tough. The exchanges are intense.
Mr. President, you can have your way, but I will have my say. You can use the gavel, and I will use my voice.
And those who want the proviso are 55 in number. And so the proviso says.
But who truly stands for the people? Who is driving the change that defines our tomorrow?
GTBT, whatever.
Get the answers on where Nigeria decides on Inside the Parliament on AIT every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll soon welcome Paul Atiku, spokesperson and media advisor, to weigh in on this unending quarrel that started sometime in 2003. 2026 is still on. But before then, let's check out some of the mails you have sent to our email platform, politicalplatform@darkgroup.com. Please do send the mails. We have abandoned that mail segment to a few listeners and viewers. Join issues with us. Pick up your tablet, your device, open up the mail, put our address, politicalplatform@darkgroup.com, and send your comments, your opinion about how our politics should be governed. It may be the magic wand we have been waiting for, but we share the ones we have with us for today.
First one is from Emmanuel Ede, who sent it in from Madala. He says, I'm still worried over the consistent rising of oil and gas prices in the country since the removal of fuel subsidy by President Bola Tinubu on 29th of May 2023. But Nigerian citizens ought not to be buying fuel at the same rate in the international markets because we are one of the largest producers of crude in the world. I'm of the opinion that the price of fuel be reduced to less than 500 naira per litre because oil and gas is the oxygen of Nigerian economy and as such must be subsidized. This will help reduce the rate of hunger, hardship, poverty, and high cost of living in the country. Next one is from Comrade Monday Ame, and he says, the expansion of army divisions from 8 to 12 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a commendable step against the fight against insurgency and insecurity in Nigeria. Kudos to the Chief of Army Staff for his strategic leadership. I commend officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army for their dedication and commitment to defending the nation. The approval for the recruitment of additional 28,000 new recruits is a welcome development. The Army echelons should ensure that the recruitment exercise is done transparently with proper due diligence and vetting of the potential candidates so that insurgents and criminal elements don't find their way into the Nigerian Army. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you so much for the mails, and note the address, the email address, politicalplatform@darkgroup.com. Now, Olusegun Obasanjo is not one of Nigeria's former leaders that is alive and kicking. There are numerous, many of them out there, but they don't usually speak up as much as he does. We have Ibrahim Babangida, we have Dusalame Abubakar, who of course has been involved with the peace initiative, the National Peace Committee, yes, that tries to manage our electoral system and our elections, build peace, to prevent conflicts and all that. We have some other Yakubu Gowon, yes, who has been more of a gentleman. So why these other ones
holding lectures? Quiet? He holds lectures from time to time.
Olusegun Obasanjo does the other way. Does it the other way?
When you say it does the other way, he also holds lectures?
Yes. No, I mean criticism of the sitting president.
You say, I would rather an Obasanjo because he follows everything, or he shows in his writings that he follows everything that is happening in this country. He's watchful as a father, because that's the way we see them now, all of them. As a father, he takes interest in what is happening in this country. And don't forget that he's quite experienced. I mean, he governed the country as a head of state, a military head of state, and then as a democratic president. So he has a whole lot to offer the country. Whether you like him or hate him, you cannot say that he has ever sat on the fence. He's always there monitoring and proffering his own kind of solutions, whether you agree with him or not. And that is very, very important. Others should at least, also follow. Yes, once a year lecture, twice in a year lecture, good, but we need more than that. We need them to take interest because the times are really hard in this country and things are not going well.
As a political economist, Dr. Amechi, let me remind you the title. One of the biggest problems in the country, beside the insecurity and corruption, is the issue of economy, the poverty in the country. Most times you ask yourself a question: what kind of foundation the former leaders have laid down that did not work properly, that ended or landed Nigeria and Nigerians in this dire needs of poverty, lack of infrastructure like good roads, electricity, bad educational system. You are talking about a hospital. Some of them who have cornered a lot of public funds with a headache or little Qatar, they fly to London or Egypt. And we've seen many such elites in Nigeria whose corpses are being brought back because the health system in the country is bad, and their system became so bad that they had to rush outside, and then they pass away there, they come back. And I remember one of the former governors who launched the so-called International Hospital or Medical Center in court. Immediately he left the seat of governorship. He had an accident in Abuja. They had to fly him out. So the fundamental question and a pointer for those who are in leadership or who will take leadership in Nigeria at various strata is: what legacy are you going to leave behind? Will you also be flying to London and Egypt and US or China and India for medical, or you are going to put a legacy on ground that if you have anything here, you will actually go to the hospitals on ground? Because even our medical doctors, a lot are working outside.
Obasanjo once had his medicals check up at the National Hospital.
How many times?
Photo ops.
But he did it.
No, but you know that
it.
he likes doing it by leading by example.
The truth is that by March next year, and I am happy for the next I'm going to say, Obasanjo will be 90 years old. That's a grand, good old age. So we should thank God for the longevity God has given to Obasanjo. By later this year, Gawan will be 94 years old. That's grand old age. We are happy that they can walk, they can speak, they can, they are good. God is keeping them. I'm so happy about that. So I want them that longevity God has given to them, they should continue to use it to tell those who have succeeded them that, look, you need to do better than we did. If they didn't do well, those who have gone earlier, they can tell those ones who are there now. They can speak to President Tinubu that, look, you're renewed the thing very well, so that Nigeria will be what it ought to be. And that's the area of, speaking up. And I'll keep on emphasizing. If I look at President Obasanjo's letters are not, his letters to Jonathan were not abusive letters. Let's go back and look at them. They were letters that spoke to the issues facing Nigeria at that time. And the man said, look, Jonathan, I know you were a deputy governor, you were a governor, you became a vice president. You have experience all these years since 1999, up until 2010 May, when you took over from the late Yad Adwa. That put your experience on the table and let it show. And he also spoke as well to what's his name, Muhammadu Buhari, and said, President Buhari. So that is what we want. And we also, the citizenry, need to be hearing what they are saying. So if it is open letters, good. If it is addresses, conferences to the press, that will be super. It will solidify the citizenry and let those who are in authority know that if someone who has sat on the seat before me can critique me constructively, then the citizenry also have a right to be able to address issues and speak to issues.
Okay, finally we have our guest for today join us now. He had a bit of a trouble locating here, traffic build-up. Mondays is nobody's friend. If you're one of those that leaves your house in the morning in big cities such as Lagos and Abuja, but we are glad to have Paul Ibe, a media advisor to Atiku Abubakar, now join us. Thank you so much for making it.
Thank you for having me. That's the challenge of living in the outskirts and pretending that you're living in the Federal Capital Territory.
But Paul, for you to have a problem locating AIT, I hope you are not losing touch with the people, with the masses.
There is a lot of developments on the hill. And some roads that were not there, I had to make multiple turns.
Okay, maybe you take the first questions from me. How do you, as do I call it a boxing match or exchange between your boss Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president, and his boss, former president Olusegun Obasanjo, about their past in the office in court?
Well, it is not a boxing match. You know, in the Southwest, the Yorubas, they have a word that they call elders who do not respect themselves. They call them Agbaya. And, you know, former President Olusegun Obasanjo is a man that we have come to know for many reasons. He's a patriot. He truly loves this country. But I don't know what he wants to make of his last days. I mean, he's in his twilight. You know,
he wants a better Nigeria, and he has said he works seriously towards that.
Well, I don't know about a better Nigeria, because when a man begins to act in negation of everything that he has ever stood for,
such as
this was a man who in 1999, at the turn of democratic rule, encouraged the people of the Southwest to align and encourage them to be involved in pan-Nigerian politics. This is the same man who today, if the Punch newspaper report of is anything to go by, who is retrieving into his tribal enclave agenda.
Is it? Because we know that he has been P2B's main supporter, number one supporter.
That's his
Atiku. That's his small screen. You know, of late, Baba is the man that you will have lunch with, eat amala with, and by evening the man is selling you for a mere shekels. Listen,
but I think that a lot of Nigerians would not agree with you, because Obasanjo is a man who stands by whatever he says or believes in. Well, he doesn't care whose ox is God. In 2019, when your principal went to meet him, you know, to appeal to him to support him, initially he said, look, he was not quite willing, but eventually he gave in, and he came out and told Nigerians so. In 2023, to him, Peter Obi was a better candidate, and he came out to tell Nigerians so. So if he was that kind of person who dilly-dallies when he or who speaks from 10 sides of his mouth, Nigerians would have known by now.
You see, I think it's enough of this, God mentality. I mean, Obasanjo should stop playing God, because he's not. Yes, he has done his own bit, but it's not even about support for Atiku or no support. That's not what this is all about. Because how do you make of a situation where a man begins to drag a man who has long passed? I'm talking about former Speaker Gali Naba. You're raising his name, and you're fully aware that the only way that man can defend himself, if it's by advent, I mean, we have a miracle and the man is raised from the dead, according to the Punch report. And he knows fully well that that man is not in a position to defend himself. Listen, when former President Obasanjo left the prisons, fired between him and Atiku Abubakar, we knew about the third-term agenda, the very toxic third-term agenda that he wanted to, introduce. And Atiku said no to it and worked with men and women of, goodwill to ensure that that process was shut down.
Perhaps an opportunity for us to form
the war front. Of course, we knew how, that politics of that era. The governors, on their own, without any prompting, they organize themselves